Welcome to the Tea Factory podcast. How y'all doing today? Today we're going to be talking about the Real Housewives of Atlanta reunion part 1. So first, a few housekeeping. Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. There's allowance for fair use of copyrighted material for such purposes as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, research are examples of activities that may qualify as fair use. So let's go ahead and get started. So first I want to start by going over their fashion, their dresses. To me, the best dress was Porsha. Porsha, not saying that just because, Porsha's my girl, but best dress is Porsha. And then, I really like Porsha's outfit. I don't think it's a dress because I watched Porsha's YouTube channel after the reunion premiered. So she did like a background story of it. Basically, it's a skirt. It's just the yellow part is the skirt, or the material part is a skirt, and then the top part where it's the armor, that's separate. So it's not attached. They're separate. So Porsha was, and then from her nails, from her her rings that she had on, from the hair, the makeup, and everything, Porsha was best dressed to me. Top tier. And then the next person, Shamia. I liked Shamia's dress. Shamia, I love the hair, the makeup. Shamia looked nice too. The beautiful chocolate skin. I think she's the darkest one on there, and the prettiest, one of the prettiest ones on there. Beautiful sister. So Shamia was next, and then I would have to say Angela. I liked Angela's dress. And then after Angela, I would have to say Porsha. Phaedra. With Phaedra, I like Phaedra's dress, outfit, whatever. I don't know if it was like a two-piece like Porsha's. I like Phaedra, what she had on, but I didn't like the hair piece. Whatever the hell that was. I don't know what that was. She said she was inspired by the jab, but it was it was a hot mess. It was a hot mess. I didn't like it. Whatever that headpiece was, I didn't like it. So, but I still liked her dress. So she looked nice. The makeup was nice. The hair was nice. Just that headpiece, like she did not need that. She could have took that shit off. So it's Porsha, Shamia, Angela, Phaedra, and then the other three. I have to say Kelly, even though I really didn't care too much for it. Kelly, and then after Kelly, I would say Drew. After Drew, the last person is Cynthia. The reason why Cynthia's last, because her dress was so plain. It was plain Jane. I wanted, she could have wore something cuter, something that had a little spaz, something that had accessories or something to it. I don't know. Something like Shamia's dress. Shamia's dress was a little bit busy, but I liked it. It had like a lot of material, beads. That's what I'm looking for. That's the word I'm looking for. So I liked her. I didn't like Cynthia's dress at all. So Cynthia's the last one. And then Drew's second to last. Drew's dress would have been nice if it didn't have the stupid feather. Like, what the hell was up with the feather? It looks like it was somebody forgot to pluck the feathers off the chicken. That's what it reminded me. Like, the first thing that came to my mind was a chicken that needed to be plucked. That's what Drew's dress was given. I didn't like her dress at all, but she still came in before Cynthia. Because Cynthia's last and Drew's second to last for me. Because I still kind of like the little split that it had. It still was kind of trying to do something. If they took the feathers off, it would have been a lot better. And then Kelly, hers was all right. Ooh, excuse me. She was all right. But anyway, so that's the my opinion on the fashion. Porsha was the best dressed. So let's get started. So they start off, Andy, of course, doing their little salutations, and he asked Porsha. He starts off with Porsha. So the way they're sitting is Porsha sitting across from Shamia, so that means Porsha and Shamia gonna go at it. Angela across from Phaedra, they're gonna go at it, and then Kelly across from Cynthia, and then Drew was at the end. But she's not about to get into it with nobody because she's a friend of the show. And really, I feel like they brought her in when they did because it was empty over there on their end because it was just Porsha and Phaedra. So they had to go ahead and bring Cynthia in early because sometimes they don't bring the friend of until like maybe the second part or whatever. But they brought Cynthia in early because it was empty because what's her name didn't come, Britt. So they start off, so Andy says, Britt's not going to be joining us. She decided not to come. The girls act surprised. Porsha said that she had talked to her and she knew she wasn't going to... she knew that... No, she talked to her. She's surprised that she didn't show up because she told her she was going to show up. She said she had told her husband was coming and they were both going to come. So Porsha said she was actually surprised that Britt didn't show up. And so, yeah, I mean, now we know why she didn't show up because the situation with Kenya. And then plus now she's suing Bravo, so she didn't come. I wish Britt would have came because for one, her dress actually was nice. Oh, yeah, so if I had to redo my best dress, I would have to say after Shamia, I would have to give it to Britt. So it would be Porsha, Shamia, Britt, Angela, Phaedra, Kelly, Drew, Cynthia. That's how it would go for me. Because she posted her dress on her Instagram page and her hair looked nice, her makeup looked nice, and the dress that she had on was nice. But nevertheless, she didn't show up, so we're just always going to wonder, what would have happened if Britt came. Britt should have came to the reunion. She should have. But she chickened out, she punked out, and here we are. So anyway, and he asked Porsha about Simon and how she was filming in the home. Well, Porsha was able to film in the house because I guess she got permission or whatever, I don't know. But she said that Simon initially had bought the house before they got married. But then in the prenup, it became the marital home. So it was their marital home. And so then he asked her something about him being detained, about Simon being detained. And she said, yes, he is detained. But she doesn't have nothing to do with that. She doesn't know anything about that. And, oops. And I don't think that Porsha had anything to do with Simon being detained by ICE. I mean, I don't think she would do that. Like we talked about it, I have a whole video on that, called Divorce and Deported that you can check out about my opinion when it comes to Simon being detained by ICE, And then Andy asked Shamia if Gerald knew Simon. And she said that, that they were cool. And he asked Porsha if she still loved Simon. She said she does love Simon. But, she had decided she didn't want to be in a relationship with him when she realized that she was in danger, not physically, but more so financially. Yeah, because she found out that he was a scammer. Once she started seeing that he was a scammer or found evidence of him being a scammer, she decided she wanted to get away from Simon because, of his scamming or whatever financial situation, whatever danger in terms of financial situation he was going to put her in. She decided she wanted to no longer be married to him, and that that probably was a wise decision because, Porsha, she had been in, when she was with Cordell, she made, she didn't make smart decisions. And I think he took everything and she ended up with nothing and she had to rebuild. So when it came to Simon, she made smart choices. Now, Simon has been doing this campaign of going to different YouTubers, talking shit about Porsha, saying that he felt like he was targeted. I don't believe that at all. Like, she did not target you, sir. She didn't. Um, and he's saying that she targeted him for his money. I don't believe so because Portia's not an ugly girl. She's beautiful. She can get any basketball player or football player or rapper. So he needs to hang that up. He's acting like a bitter ex-wife, going around doing all these YouTube interviews, and all he does is talk about Porsha. But anyway, let me get back on track. So then Andy asked Kelly why she asked Porsha if she was, or why she was messing with that woman's husband, or why she stole that woman's husband. That question that she asked during the opening of the season. And they asked Kelly, if she got the answer that she was looking for. And, at the end of the day, Kelly said that to get on the show. I mean, she was already on the show, but to make her presence be known, I believe that she was coached to say that. I believe Kelly probably didn't come up with that question on her own. I believe, maybe production or somebody told her to ask Porsha that question. And then, and Porsha said, her and Kelly going through the same thing. They're going through their divorces. They have their husbands online talking crap about them. And then Kelly says, oh, no, we're not going through the same thing. She tells Porsha, she was married for 11 years and Porsha was married for 11 months. And you can tell that caught Porsha off guard because Portia's like, clutching her pearls, honey. She's like, what? I know you didn't just try to shame me. And Porsha really didn't have a comeback for that. She just was like, oh, wow, okay, so she got me there. The thing is this. This reunion, what I saw when it comes to Kelly kept coming for Porsha. And basically, like, she was trying to do Shamia's dirty work. Because Shamia was quiet at first, and Kelly was just, coming at Porsha hard like she really had like some beef. And then if you saw through the season, they really didn't have no beef. But Kelly was coming at her hard, I feel, in my opinion. And then Andy asked Porsha why she said she would sleep with Charles. So then that gave segue to Angela to start talking. But Porsha apologized to Angela. She said that's not how she meant it. And she apologized to Angela. Angela says that Shamia introduced Simon and Porsha, to each other. And then Andy asked Porsha if Shamia did introduce her to Simon, but Porsha didn't really answer. She paused. She acted like she didn't want to answer the question, and I feel like someone is lying. I think Porsha or Simon has said that Porsha went into his DM. That's how they first met. But then Angela in the reunion was saying that Shamia had said when they were in Nashville that Porsha, that she introduced Porsha and Simon. So I don't know. But then when Andy asked Porsha was quiet. Like she didn't want to say yes or no. So I don't know what's going on with that. We need to find out the backstory of that. And then, they ask about, Porsha said that her and Dennis, are good friends and they're just, co-parenting and they're just kikiing and stuff like that. And they have a good time when they're around together, each other. And then Kelly again chimes in and says, all through that man's house. I don't know. I feel like someone told Kelly to come for Porsha during this reunion. And I feel like she was doing Shamia's dirty work. Like, why are you keep coming for Porsha? But obviously, if she, she has, if she's invited to come back next season, it worked because she was coming for Porsha hard. And then, I don't know, she just kept arguing with Porsha. And then, let's see. So I'm sorry, y'all. So then, okay. What's his name? Andy. Andy asked about Drew. So this is the thing. Drew says, that she had been trying to get hold of Porsha to try to talk to her to let her know that she was working with Dennis. And she said that Drew wasn't answering. Same thing that she said on episode 1 or 2. So maybe Drew wasn't lying because Drew is like sticking to her story. She said that she did try to call Porsha. She did try to get in contact with Porsha. She wanted to let her know that she was working with Dennis because she didn't want to make it seem like she was going behind her back. But Porsha never answered the phone. So then Porsha does a power move. She gets up and she goes to Drew and she apologized to Drew. So while they were talking about the incident between Porsha and Drew, Porsha just gets up. She's just like, she gets up, she goes over to Drew and she apologizes to Drew and she squashes it and they hug and they made up. She apologized for meeting with Ralph. She said that she met with Ralph trying to be messy, trying to be dirty, trying to get her revenge back. Well, we all knew that too because we were like, we all knew when we saw that scene, we knew it was on some get back. Porsha was on was trying to get back at Drew. Even Ralph, by him even to agree to do that, to meet with Shamia and Porsha, it was to get back at Drew. And then Shamia was in it too to get back at Drew for that incident where Drew and Angela got into it with Drew, Angela, and Shamia when they got into it at the gym, if y'all remember that scene. So everybody, like all three of them, at that moment hated Drew or were mad at Drew, were pissed off at Drew. So they all met up just trying to be dirty and messy and to get back. But Drew accepted Porsha's apology, so they made up. But that was a power move on Porsha, though, because Porsha knew that the biggest op that she had on that reunion stage was Drew. And Drew would have came for her, and Drew would have probably laid her out, and Drew would have dragged her. So she squashed that beef with Drew quick, fast, in a hurry. And the thing is, Porsha, in this, episode, the part 1 of the reunion, she owned that. Like she was coming out after everybody. She had something to say. She was talking to folks crazy. You can tell she owned it. You can tell she was confident. You can tell she was strong. You can tell that she was coming there to handle business, which she did. The only other person that was probably going to come for her besides Shamia and Kelly is Drew. That was her biggest competition or opposition. So she went ahead and just did a power move and squashed that. I was like, when she did that, I was like, okay, I see you, Porsha. I see you. I see what you did there. Because, her and Phaedra is like two peas in a pod, like, and plus she's sitting next to her. So that was, she took that out real quick. She took Drew out real quick in a hurry. So then they take a break. When they come back from the break, Andy asks Kelly about her relationship with Britt. And she starts talking about Britt and the stylist again. How Britt stole the stylist and she told secretive information to the stylist. The stylist went back and told Britt stuff he had no business telling her and stuff like that. And then he asked Porsha, he said, Porsha, oh, this is funny. So he said, Porsha, some, and then Porsha's like, what? I was like, what? And everybody laughed too. It was like, what? He said, Porsha. She was like, what? Like, she forgot she was talking to her boss. She just, I felt like it was rude, disrespectful, and funny all at the same time when she replied to Andy. Poor Andy, honey. He be getting it. And then Porsha says, she didn't want to, speak on it or say anything, but since Andy, asked her the question, she said that Britt had told her that there was an alliance, that Shamea, Kelly, and Britt had met up at Houston's. Houston's is a restaurant here in Atlanta. So they met up at Houston's and they had created an alliance that they were going to come after Porsha and they were going to take Porsha down, honey. So then Shamea and Kelly both denied it. They were like, oh, there was no alliance. There was no alliance. I believe Britt. I believe that there was an alliance because all these reality shows, people always create an alliance to take one person down. Just like in Love and Marriage Huntsville, everybody had an alliance to take Melody Cherie down, and so on and so forth. They do it in all reality shows. And even watching this past season, I knew that there was an alliance. You can tell that there was alliances, the way folks was going around carrying themselves, So, anyway, so then they're coming at Porsha saying no, that there was no alliance. And then Shamea says, okay, yes, there was an alliance, but the alliance was Shamea, Kelly, Britt, and Porsha. They were like, so Porsha was in that alliance. And then Porsha was denied that she knew about the alliance. She denied that that there was an alliance that she was involved in. She said that alliances kill shows, which they do. But to be honest with you, I don't know. I kind of low-key believe Shamea that there was probably an alliance that included Porsha because I just don't think Shamea would lie about that part. But then if they had that alliance, who were they going to go after, though? Not that I think about it. Because Porsha and Phaedra are cool. And Porsha's cool with Cynthia, too. So the only two people they were going to go after was Drew and Angela. And then Andy asked them, too. He was like, well, why y'all didn't include Angela in the alliance? She's new. She's a newbie, too. Why y'all didn't include Angela? And then, Angela said, so then Angela chimed in about that, too, because she felt a way of not being part of that alliance. She kept calling it allegiance, and they were like, no, it's called alliance. But anyway, and then okay, so then Andy asked Kelly. He said, how do you feel about Britt? The incident with Britt, y'all used to be, thick as thieves. You stuck by her. You had her back, during that whole Kenya incident. You were going to bat for her. And, and even with that, when she was talking shit about Angela and Charles, he said you were supportive of her. So how do you feel about the situation with Britt? And then, when her and Britt got into it, and then when Britt threw Kelly under the bus and she said something about her having an abortion, and that was wrong. Like, Britt was out of pocket to say that to Kelly, whether Kelly had said that to her personally or or the stylist had told her. Oh gosh, and I'm sorry that I said the A word too. I just said the whole entire word. I should have just said A word, but because I know you have to be sensitive to people, and my apologies. But but Kelly says, that she is hurt and wasn't happy about that because she did the IV drip, which cost like $1,000, and Kelly was, I will say this, Kelly was a good friend. Kelly was a good friend. She had Britt's back. The lies and the things that Britt would tell, Kelly had her back. When Britt had that luncheon at the golf course, Kelly brought her something like Kelly always brought her like some flowers, or she brought her the IV thing, or she would come and check on her, or her and the dogs would go out for a walk. Like Kelly was a good friend. She really was. Like she was holding and I like that about her. Like she was holding Britt down, but Britt, all she did was stab her in the back. Not only was and Britt was a horrible friend to Kelly, and so when all those things that Kelly has said about Britt right there, I agree with Kelly 1,000%, because Kelly is a true. Now that's one thing about Kelly. She is a good friend. When she's a friend and she has your back, she's a good friend. And I'm not saying that because I know her, because I don't know her from a can of paint. But from what she has demonstrated on the show, the way she was holding Britt down, even Shamia, she is a good friend. And then on the flip side, if she's not your friend and she don't like you, she gonna come for you too. Because look how she came for Porsha. Every chance she gets, every opportunity she gets to come for Porsha, she does. So, she's both, but she can go both ways. She can go both ways. And then, so then also Andy asked Kelly why she always has security everywhere she goes. And then, of course, Porsha chimes in again. She says that she's heard that it's not so much to, protection from the husband, and that she's also that the husband has also had issues with her because he ended up going to jail. And she said, yeah, because, if there's violence, that's what's going to happen. And that part right there, like, Porsha did not even need to chime in. That was none of her business. But, they got to keep the show going. And then, so then Andy asked her about the second location at Sandy Springs for Nana's Chicken and Waffles, and how, why it's taking her so long. And she said, she's been backed up in legal fees, and that's why she hasn't been able to get that up and running. And actually, I can't wait for her to get that up and running, because I want to go to that location, because I was at her first location, And then, so Andy says, but you have all this expensive gifts for your daughter. You spend all that money on the dog's grooming, bodyguard. So you have all these unnecessary expenses. Maybe that's what's helping, that's probably what's causing her financial struggles, which I agree. Because she did do too much for the dog and stuff like that. But hey, and then now, I've seen a few blogs saying that currently right now she has financial problems. I don't know about that. I have to do some research before I make a video on that. But yeah, so, Kelly, some people do live above their means. They do. And some people live for the cameras. Some people like to show in front. And maybe she is. Maybe Kelly does not have the money that she portrays to have, or tries to act like maybe she's faking it till she make it, But we shall see. We shall see. And then so then Angela goes after Porsha. So now it's Angela and Porsha going at it. They asked her about this, the situation about the guy coming in there lying on Charles, saying that Charles was cheating on Angela. So Angela comes in there with the whole binder, honey. Oh my God, she came with a prop. They all came with props. Okay, so she came with a prop, and she had pictures or some kind. They didn't show us, but something to prove that Phaedra is behind the man that came at the event that Kelly threw at Williams-Sonoma. So she says that Phaedra's siblings went to school with him. I mean, Athens is a small town, okay? Athens is a small town. It's not super, super small, but it's a small town. And it's a college town because that's where the University of Georgia is. UGA is in Athens. And so they probably all do know each other. They probably do, So that doesn't mean Phaedra is behind it. Even if they know her siblings, And even if Phaedra know who this person is, that does not mean that Phaedra is behind this whole thing. I mean, what's her name? Angela could be behind it herself. I agree with Porsha. Angela could be behind it because it's funny how Angela was like, well, I feel like Portia's behind it because Porsha needs to secure her spot for next season. And Porsha says, Phaedra, I'm sorry. She said that Phaedra needs to secure her spot for the next season. And Phaedra said, I already have a secure contract. And I believe that, Angela, you did this because you need to secure your future on the show. So this is something that, it's a scheme that Angela set up. Not Todd, but Angela. So, I don't know. But hopefully we get to find out. Maybe we'll get to find out next season who is behind it. But I really don't think it's Phaedra. And then also Angela shows Andy her birth certificate to prove how old she is because everybody says that she's older than she says she is because she looks older. Phaedra has said she looks older. Even I've said it too. She does look older. I mean, the fans have said it. She does look older. But so, and then they asked okay, I'm sorry. I'm kind of track here. Yeah, so then I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh, so then, again, Angela is still going about how the Phaedra's family members are friends or of this guy, somebody named, sound like she said Kimberly, somebody named Kimberly that they're supposed to be friends with, and that's supposed to be the tie-in person. But Phaedra still denied it. I believe Phaedra. I believe that she doesn't have anything to do with it. And then, and Cynthia was just sitting there. She really wasn't saying too much of nothing. She would chime in when when Porsha and Shamir got into it, she chimed in then. But she just, she looked like a peacemaker, and she looked like, I don't have to show out. Like, you could tell that there was no weights on Cynthia. Like, she's just there as the wise, experienced cast member, And then Drew, once Porsha apologized to her, she simmered down, and she wasn't saying nothing or coming for Porsha. And like I said, that was a smart move. But then Porsha Drew and Shamia kind of got into it a little bit. And when Shamia decided she wanted to chime in, and then she came with a prop too. She brought a purse, and she was trying to tell Drew that you had the fake purse, but here's the real purse. And then Portia's like, here, listen, I'll take that too. I didn't care for their exchange for Drew and Shamia. It felt rehearsed and it felt forced. I don't know. They got on my nerves, but you could just tell who came ready and was kind of from the dome not because they had studied, but because they were ready to clear some things up. And to me, that was Porsha and Angela. Angela is MVP out of all the newbies to me. Angela definitely deserves to come back next year, and the year after that, and the year after that, and the year after that. Kelly, she is fake and phony. Well, when it comes to her friendships with people, no, I meant like fake and phony, as in like she not for the show, like as in like her finance, like her personal life. Her finances are funny. Restaurants closing. The story about her and her ex-husband, we don't know what it is. Supposedly she put him in jail. He get out of jail. He go back in jail. So it's like we really don't know too much about that story. That's what I mean by fake. But when it comes to a person that she says that she's friends with, she does hold her friends down. But I feel like some of her story that she's trying to portray, her image that she's trying to portray on the show is fake. And I don't really care for that. And then Drew, of course, is Drew. She's going to be Drewing. Okay? Drew win. Phaedra was saying too much of nothing. She was kind of quiet this reunion episode. Hopefully the next 2 episodes we get to see what she has to bring to the table. So guys, that is Real Housewives of Atlanta reunion part 1. See you part 2. Thank you for watching. For listening and doing this review with me tonight. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Subscribe. Please subscribe. And thank you for listening to the Tea Factory podcast. Have a good day. Bye.